It's well known that relationships aren't easy to handle. The chances that a relationship is destined to fail are as high as 60% within the first year, so it's safe to say that trying to make a relationship work can be quite a hassle. No wonder people tend to lose it when they experience a breakup. Many hold a grudge afterwards and even try to take revenge. This story about Dino and Andrea's breakup will also give us some insight into how dangerous vengeance can actually be. Breakups are very painful, and sometimes people's reactions in these extremely stressful situations can alarm and shock us. Dino and Andrea's breakup was definitely not a sweet one. In order to understand the severity of this breakup, we must first look at who Dino and Andrea were before they started dating. Dino was a hard-working oil rig worker, and he was willing to do jobs that no one else would dare to do. Not only is working at an oil rig physically demanding, but it also requires one to spend most of their time away from home. So in a nutshell, Dino was a young and dedicated man who did whatever it took to make money. As you would expect, living a life offshore for many months as an oil rig worker isn't an easy task. While on the job, anywhere an oil rig worker looks, they see water. So besides having a physically demanding job, these people also have to resist temptations of quitting and not going crazy once they step on land. But for Dino, this job was a way to earn his living, and that was that. He didn't have temptations because he was gritty and focused. Because of Dino's disciplined nature, he was not a party animal. He'd always been a more calculated kind of guy compared to his fellow colleagues. His colleagues and friends described him as a nice and quiet person who would rather save his money than spend it frivolously. He also managed to afford himself a condo that was fully paid off. This helps us understand how careful he was with his money, but also how serious he was becoming in terms of settling down. He was working towards having a stable family life one day, so he did what was necessary to pave the path. For a guy who wanted to settle down, he was missing just one thing: a girl. He didn't spend his time chasing girls, even though a lot of his coworkers tended to do exactly that. It makes sense considering how much time they spent offshore. But Dino wasn't like his coworkers. He was a patient man just waiting for the right one to appear. His patience finally paid off, and Dino found the girl of his dreams, Andrea. When he introduced Andrea to his friends, everybody was amazed. She was stunning, and some would even say that she was out of his league. He was shy and nice, while she was jaw-droppingly beautiful. Andrea had brains too. If anyone were to talk to her for 5 minutes, they'd realize she was really smart as well. Andrea seemed like the perfect girl, but there was something about her that didn't seem right. She was intelligent and stunning, all right, but she was also aware of how beautiful she was, so she tended to use these characteristics to her advantage. Dino's friends were concerned about this, but they also knew Dino was a smart guy, so they hoped for the best. But Dino was so crazy in love with this girl that he was blind to see any flaws she had. The couple seemed really happy, so they decided to move in together. This step came quite fast in the opinion of Dino's friends, but the couple couldn't see any reason why they should wait any longer. They were happy together, and it seemed like any time would be the right for the next step, so why not sooner than later? Taking the next step basically meant that Andrea was supposed to move into Dino's place. If we take into consideration the fact that Dino spent most of his time working far away from his condo, then we might understand better that moving in together meant that Andrea would move into a place where she would be on her own most of the time. So why did they move in together again? Not only did Dino and Andrea decide on living together, but Dino also gave Andrea his debit card to use for any kind of expenses she'd have. And so she did. When Dino decided to give Andrea his house and debit card, he absolutely trusted her because he loved her with all his heart. Little did he know that things were soon going to change. Let's just remind ourselves that Dino was an economical kind of guy and pretty careful with how he used his money. He wouldn't have been able to afford himself a condo if he'd behaved differently. So naturally, he was always aware of how much money he had at every moment and was carefully following his bank statements. It was this characteristic of his that helped him understand better who Andrea really was. Dino noticed that his beloved girl was a bit more reckless with money than he was. She was either able to eat $500 of groceries in 5 days, or she was pumping cashbacks into her purse. It was difficult for Dino to admit it to himself, but finally he realized that Andrea was probably with him for the money instead of love. Now Dino understood that Andrea was a gold digger. Andrea was so audacious that not only did she spend Dino's money without any explanation, but she also started being more and more distant and reserved. This made Dino think that there might have been another guy in her life. This possibly meant double betrayal from Andrea, so now he had to do something about it. Realizing your girlfriend is a gold digger and might be cheating on you is a slap of reality which is not easy to handle. But Dino was a clever guy and he knew that Andrea was quite smart herself too, so his plan to get back at her had to be immaculate. He also knew that when it came to Andrea, his guard was often down, so in order to make sure his plan would work, he had to have a witness as well. It was time for action. Dino came back home, but not when he told her he would be back. He came back a few days before in order to surprise her. He headed home, and before he stepped into his condo, he brought a witness with him, a security guard from the condominium association. When he entered the place, he realized he was right all along. Andrea was taken by surprise by Dino showing up a few days before she'd expected him. It was clear she was really surprised because her new lover was with her when Dino entered the condo. Not only was she shocked, but she also realized what she'd done, so she burst into tears. But her tears didn't affect Dino. He was determined to end everything with Andrea. Despite the fact that he caught her with another guy, Dino kept his temper and just told the guy to get out. And as for Andrea, he gave her $50 for a cab to take her to a hotel where he paid for a room. But she didn't want to get lost. She started screaming, crying, telling him she loved him and then cursing him. Basically, she lost it. Only then did Dino decide to call the police. After the cops got there, Andrea was finally kicked out without any of her belongings, feeling furious and humiliated. Dino locked her belongings in a storage unit and Andrea demanded her things back immediately. Dino knew that Andrea would try to come into his condo and try to smooth talk her way back into his heart, and that's precisely why he arranged a doorman to give her the keys to a storage room once she showed up to Dino's place. Dino predicted this well, so Andrea really showed up, and since the doorman knew the whole story, he gave her the keys and directions to the storage unit, but didn't let her inside the condo. Dino had a feeling that he and Andrea were finally through, so he went on another work mission with his heart at ease. But Andrea had different plans. The vengeful Andrea still wanted to get back at him. She knew that Dino had another love in his life, and that was his car, more specifically a white Chevy Monte Carlo. When Dino came back from the oil stint several weeks after the breakup, he couldn't believe his eyes. His beautiful car was completely wrecked with a smashed windshield, 4 flat tires, and red paint smeared all over it. One didn't need detective skills to understand who did it. Despite feeling furious, Dino decided that he needed to wait for the right moment to strike back at Andrea. It took 2 years for the moment to come. Dino's friend Nancy told him that Andrea was getting married, and finally he found the perfect moment to strike. 1 month before her wedding, Andrea received an anonymous letter containing 3 items: a ketchup packet, a picture of a Monte Carlo, and of a wedding dress, along with a cryptic message red on white. She started to get scared, and even though 2 years had passed since Andrea and Dino's breakup, neither of them forgot what had happened. Dino decided not to wait too long before his next act. He got the information from Nancy about the place where Andrea got her wedding dress and took the plunge. He went to the shop and asked a guy working there if he wanted to make an easy $100. The guy only needed to call Andrea and say that her fiancé requested her to come and choose the red lace trim for her gown. She stormed into the store knowing her fiancé made no such requests. The thought of Dino ruining her wedding set deeper into Andrea's stomach. She felt like it was just a matter of time when it was going to happen, and the agonizing fear made her go crazier and crazier. It didn't help when Nancy accidentally mentioned that Dino's friend worked for a caterer that Andrea had hired for the big day. When Andrea heard about this, she canceled all the orders for dishes containing anything red in them. Dino kept messing with Andrea's mind by sending her 30 different red lipsticks, leaving red Sharpies on her windshield. Andrea was so anxious about what Dino was planning to do on her wedding day that she asked her father to call Dino to try to talk some sense into him. But this didn't work out well for Andrea either, since once her father heard what his beloved daughter did to Dino and his car, he not only stayed out of it. Andrea's father was very disappointed in her, and from that moment on, she couldn't count on her father for any support. The day of the wedding came. Nothing red was supposed to be in the bride's sight. All the red flowers were removed from the centerpieces, all the red sauces were removed from the menu, and the guests holding red wine had to bend over backwards when the bride approached. She behaved completely erratically throughout the day, driven by panic that her dress would be stained. Instead of enjoying her big day, she spent it waiting for the ambush that never came. And what was Dino's plan for the day? Well, nothing. He sat at home receiving texts from his friend Nancy about Andrea's bridezilla behavior and having a good laugh about it. He didn't plan to ruin the wedding for all the guests there, just for her. And as for the dress, it was never planned to be really stained, but Andrea's behavior made another stain. It stained her reputation, and now everybody could see her for what she really was.